And you were still very much in the Nightmare world. Like you were doing Mystery, but you were Nightmare world.
Right.
That was way back in the day.
God, what year? I'm trying to think, man. I don't want to derail this, but
go ahead, derail. That's what the show does.
What? Right? Yeah, I'm saying on brand, right? What year did we last see each other in person? Was it Detroit Fan Fest?
It was Detroit Fan Fest 2000.
I have a number in my head.
I want to say 13. It was before I fixed the teeth. That I remember.
I was thinking it was like 14, maybe.
Yeah, it might have been 14. It might have been 14. It might have been 14.
So it has been a minute, and and so we see each other in person. But even now to get to chat this way again, man, it's nice. It's been a while. I'm glad to catch up with you.
Yeah, me too, man. It's been a real long time. Let's see.
Back then, I was doing Re, but it was mainly all Nightmare World at the time, and now we're past that even.
My big mouth makes me money now. I never thought I'd say that, but
play to your strengths, brother. Play to
That's right. That's right. Right. And you, I guess where I want to start with butts and seats because I kind of feel like for you that was one of those serendipity pinch myself I'm dreaming moments.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. So how did you again, we're not going to dwell on it. 2020 started off pretty rough for you, and then you disappeared, and then you come back, and you got this on the plate. Was this on beforehand? Did it happen during that time? You were kind of convalescing.
Yeah, 2020 did not go the way anybody anticipated for anyone.
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
For me, 2020 is ultimately always going to be defined by the fact that, God, it's hard to still talk about this. My grandfather got very ill, and right before C2E2, which is my favorite big convention of the year every year. And my grandfather was in Florida with my grandma, and he was not doing well. And I had to get down to Florida to help my grandma get him back home. He was alive at the time, let me specify. And I remember talking to Travis McIntyre from Source Point Press, who's a dear friend of mine and my publisher. And I said, okay, man, here's what I can do. I literally had a backpack. I'm like, I'm going to shoot down to Florida, help get them situated, get them back up here. I'll get home, and then I'll drive over to Chicago. And Travis has met my grandfather. We're very close. Travis and I and my grandfather and I are very close. And he goes, Dirk, go take care of your grandfather. Don't worry about a freaking Comic-Con. And it finally kind of snapped for me. And I'm like, my God, what am I doing? I wanted to be there for a lot of reasons. But he was right. I had to be there for my grandpa. And I bring this up in the context of your question because I figured, well, okay, first time ever, I'm going to miss C2E2. A buddy might take my table. And I said, that's fine. We'll pick up at Seattle a couple weeks later, and we'll just move on. And we can start to move forward. Well, the narrator, he did not make it to Seattle. No one did. Everything shut down. And everything shut down for a year. And, my grandfather ended up passing and things like that. But what ended up happening was the whole convention circuit shut down. And what was supposed to happen, unbeknownst to me at the time, was a buddy of mine was going to do an introduction to Tony Schiavone. Because my buddy Mike Dawkins, people know him online as a gimmick attorney. I use him for a lot of legal stuff as well. He's a good friend of mine. He had talked to Tony Schiavone about doing a comic book because Tony Schiavone is a big comic book fan. He's a big comic geek. And Mike's master plan was, I'll get Tony and Dirk to meet at C2E2 and they could talk about doing a comic. Didn't happen. So once Mike kind of found out what was going on, he's like, hey, man, look, I know you got some stuff going on here, with your grandfather and everything else. He goes, but, would you want to have this conversation with Tony Schiavone? And the joke I tell all the time now that's not a joke was I told Mike I'd be willing to have that conversation. I'm a huge professional wrestling geek. You know that. I've never been shy. Even when it was not cool to be a wrestling fan.
Absolutely.
I'm unabashed about it. I love wrestling. I love heavy metal. I love comic books. I love horror. And I love ice cream. Those are the things that I love. And and part of my hobbies, my passions, and now my career. So because I didn't want to get wrapped up in this big vanity project, but Tony and I got together on Zoom with Drina Joe, who was my editor I was working with, Dave Silva, and it became very evident very quickly in talking to Tony that not only was there a fascinating story there, but he's a really cool guy. He's a very humble guy. And this would not have been a project about, oh, let's talk about how great I am. But rather that Tony just has this amazing story of going from being a fan of wrestling to becoming an icon in the industry. And I know he would hate me saying that, but it's true. He is,
Oh, yeah.
And so what ended up happening was, while a lot of people were trying to figure out what to do with themselves in 2020, because there was no conventions, publishing, I mean, make no mistake, publishing was grinding to a halt. Diamond quit shipping books. Everything was going crazy. I was working on a book with Tony Schiavone. And then as things started to open up, two things happened. One, I did the quick starter for Buried But Not Dead, which then got picked up by Sourcepoint Press, which collects a lot of my unpublished stories into a nice hardcover. This went on to get nominated for a Ringo Award for Best Original Graphic Novel of 2021.
Awesome.
So eventually, when we reprint this, it'll look like that.
Yeah.
Right? Not that big, obviously. I'm being obnoxious.
No. I got a similar thing with one of my books, actually. So
yeah,
I get it.
yeah. So you got to take your wins where you can. So yeah, I released this as a surprise Kickstarter drop. I kind of announced it. I think I gave like a week's notice I was doing this, and we did about close to 15 grand in 15 days. And then people said, "Oh, okay, well, we guess Dirk is doing something. He's staying a little busy." And what people did not know was after that, then we turned around and announced I was doing Butts and Seats with Tony Schiavone. What no one anticipated, Josh, was how, I'm trying to think of a better word than big, how big that book would become. Number one best-selling book on Amazon. The first comic or first original graphic novel to be advertised on cable television by name. It's advertised. It's been on AEW programming for weeks. They've been advertising it on there. A monster Kickstarter campaign. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go two different ways here. I'm gonna talk about like from the author standpoint. Do you know the last author to really get advertised on television? The last one at all?
My gosh. I mean, my knee-jerk reaction would be like maybe Alan Moore, but for Watchmen, no, that would be
Stephen King in the 80s was the last time any kind of advertising of that magnitude. I mean, just put this in perspective, like how serendipitous this is. You literally, I mean, you might be able to
footsteps of Stephen King.
No, I mean, seriously, he was the last author to do it. Now, if you want to talk about wrestling autobiographies, you might be able to make an argument for Mick Foley, right? Because he got a lot of advertisement when his. So I mean,
but it wasn't a comic.
Yeah, but it was not a comic, right? So, but I mean, as far as comics go, I mean, virtually this is never. Hey, Jag, this is Dirk. Dirk, this is Jag. We'll go to there here. So if she wants to talk some more, she can. But no, so I mean, that's a freak. Tony Schiavone. So here's the thing. So I'm going to go talk about him next, and then we'll talk about you. He disappeared from wrestling for like 15 years. You can be seen again, Jag. Yes, you can. I figured it out the chat overlay. Congratulations. I'm a trained professional and stuff. Don't tell Dirk.
Yeah, he disappeared from wrestling for almost 20 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, in one very real sense, I'm like Schiavone, this is overdue. As much as I love Jim Ross, and Jim Ross definitely deserves the credit for being the voice of professional wrestling. Yeah. The NWA would not have been the same. The early WCW, the WCW would not have had, like, Tony Schiavone is the voice of WCW. She wants to know what you got, iced coffee?
I do. Decaf. I haven't had caffeine in like 20 years. So full disclosure, some people will smite me, but this is decaf iced coffee.
we're still friends, Dirk. I won't hold it against you. You like ice cream. It's all good. So, right. So,
Yeah, I can't eat ice cream doing this because my mouth will be full.
yes. Yeah. Good for you. She says, yeah. But no, so I mean, congratulations. Like, I mean, so for him, I think this is overdue. I'm loving that he's getting this because he's quietly had a great announcing career doing other things as well. Right. And it's one of those things where it's just like for him, it's like, I'm glad he's getting his due because I do feel up until 2 years ago, he never got his due.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, Josh, because one of the things in the book is about him going away and then coming back and recognizing his legacy. And sometimes you need to step away to see that, and one of the things I think that 2020 did for me, and I hope it did this for a lot of people, is it gave a lot of us a chance to pause and reflect, and get off of the grind. I was doing 25 shows a year. I was working. And then when you suddenly have to take a year off and be away from everyone and be away and be with yourself and just recenter yourself. And that's what Tony went through too. And we talk about that in the book about him stepping away from wrestling for 20 years, almost 20 years, and then coming back and recognizing this whole new generation of wrestlers was like you were saying, like, you were the voice, you were the guy.
Yeah.
And Tony's a guy who's very humble.
Oh, sure.
Very, very humble. And him recognizing like, wow, okay, this is a thing. It's cool.
The Four Horsemen would not have been as big without him. Sting would not have been as big without him. Right. And those are the big two he's most known for, but Dusty Rhodes too. Like those are like iconic people that he quietly helped build without
all the like the Arn Anderson stuff, even the Andersons when they were the Minnesota Wrecking Crew back in the day, that stuff. You go back and watch all these classic moments, and it's Schiavone holding the mic every time.
Yeah. I say my favorite LOD stuff actually is with Schiavone, not with anything in WWE. But
right.
So that's Schiavone, and I just say all this because again, it's good people deserve to be recognized for what they do, and that's kind of why I wanted to take that minute because he's done a lot of good, and I'm really glad he's getting this resurgence in this time because he deserves it.
And
let's go to you.
Yeah.
So
he's a good dude, and then let's go to Dirk.
No, so for the full disclosure, ladies and gentlemen, I've known Dirk Manning since he did a column back for Newsarama.com. That's when we actually quote unquote met. Right? He once had a talk.
2008, maybe a long time.
2005-ish, give or take. It
was like 2006. Oh, yeah. I was going to say that, and I tried to hedge my bet, but so it's been a minute.
Oh, yeah.
There's people listening to this that won't believe that I was actively doing stuff in 2000. I can't believe sometimes I was actively doing stuff in 2006.
Well, I was going to have this week. Okay. I was just going to have this weird, I realized this because I've been doing my own kind of career arc for a long time. I've kind of gone on my own little weird off beaten path. And I almost feel like this is this way with you now. It's you've been doing this for a long time. You started here. And in the grind, something you just mentioned, we don't notice what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then one day you wake up and you're like, holy shit, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll give you a perfect example of that. And I've mentioned this a lot in live streams I do, and this is not a humble brag, but let's see if I can. Okay.
Go right ahead.
So right there. Okay. Well, so I'm trying to learn the reverse camera. Okay. Right here. There's a spinner rack, right? Mm-hmm. That's an old timey spinner rack. You probably can't see it at the top, but it's got Spider-Man, Richie Rich, Archie, and Superman. So this is old school spinner rack. My goal has always been to one day fill a spinner rack with my own books. That's a personal goal for me. Now, to do this, I don't cheat. And what I mean by that is when I put out Tales Mystery Volume 1, that's a spot. Tales Mystery, even though it's multiple issues worth of content, boom. Volume 2 is a spot. Nightmare Volume 1 is a spot. So I don't chop up the books and say okay, well, technically this covers, Mystery alone with Volume 5, which I know we'll talk about that in a minute, puts me at 32 issues worth of content. that's a lot of spots on this. But no, volume 5 is going to go in a slot. So when 2020 happened and the world shuts down, I'll never forget. One day I was sitting in my office and I was working, and I turned around like this. I mean, turn my back to the camera. I apologize. But I'm looking and I'm like, wow. I go, it's getting close.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I realized, that I had this epiphany where it's like I was so focused on the goal that I stopped. I failed to stop and recognize how amazing it is that I'm as far along as I am, if that makes any sense.
Totally. Like, let's,
You know,
so I'm doing a show now I'm hosting a show for Canadian immigration. Not like a big thing, right? But it's like
that's
my
so
big
cool.
mouth and my big mouth and my ability to interview people for years has opened this door, right? And we often, so something a very valuable lesson I learned in the last few years: don't fall in love with the outcome. Instead, just
Right.
enjoy
Well
enjoy the journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's really easy because you get into this groove. You start, like, you're producing books, you're on tour, you get caught up in this in your dream, that you don't realize that sometimes you get these really cool magical moments that just happen to you.
Yeah.
One of mine is I got the opportunity to meet Spider Robinson.
Oh.
Right. Okay. So here's the thing. So since you've last been on, this podcast has won an award. It was a Canadian award from the Canadian
Right. I did see that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that when I got my pin, right? When I got my pin, I met Spider Robinson. I actually gave Spider his Hall of Fame pin back in Vancouver. Isn't that cool? Now here's an even cooler story.
Please.
The next day, I was supposed to interview another really well-known author. He blew me off. It was okay. It was one of those, like, honestly, just it happens all the time.
Right.
Spider Robinson is checking out of his hotel room. He's looking for directions. Now, in my head, I'm just like, fuck it. If he says no, I'll do it. So I go, hi, I give him directions. I go, listen, I do a show. Would you like to come on and do an interview? He gives me his phone number, his email. We do a phone interview. He has one of the funniest White House stories you will ever listen to in your life. It's hilarious, right? He talks about writing for Robert Heinlein, and he talks about his wife. So when it was over, I was like, I just had a conversation with one of the all-time greatest sci-fi writers of all time. That's fucking cool. That's just fucking right.
Right.
So, and all of this to say, like, going back to you, everything you've done is, the victories pile up. You don't know where it leads you. You never do. You never, ever do. And so what I try to do, after I won that award, I won the award that night too, which was like, that was a crazy day. The next day I had an honest, like, heart to heart. What did I do to get this? What can I do to come back? And finally, maybe the last thing, what could get in my way from coming back here? Because the hard thing, what they don't tell you is, you can slip on a banana peel and get success. I'm not saying it's that easy, but sometimes you just, right place, right time, things happen.
Right.
Staying there and getting better. That's the real work.
No, you're exactly right. And I'm going to be really blunt. As like a middle-aged white guy, there's a lot of people that tell you, and we can slip on those banana peels and fall forward a lot easier than a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's it. I get it. I own it, but you're right. But one of the things you start to realize is, when you get that momentum going, however you get it going, one of the biggest mistakes I made for a long time, and I'm going to be really raw on this, is I let myself allow other people to think that it was not as hard. I didn't work as hard as I really did. And I had a lot of reasons for doing that, and they don't matter. But what does matter is the fact that you have to work, like you said, you have to work so hard. And And even if you catch lucky breaks, which everyone catches some lucky breaks to get to where they're going. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
Grinding is a big part of it. You got to grind, you got to work hard, you got to bust your ass. But then also, you know, and in fact, this is one of the things that Tony talks about in his book, and we've talked about a lot personally and professionally, is to get the lucky break, you have to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But to be there, you got to work to get there, you know. And it takes a lot of work. And you're right, it takes a lot of work to keep that momentum going. You know, it's easy to make one comic and quit. It's easy to make one book and quit. It's easy to make one episode of a podcast and quit.
Mm-hmm.
But to do it for to doing as long as you're doing it, or to make books as long as I've been doing it, you know, and finding new challenges and new struggles and new setbacks, you know, you end up carrying, in a way, you end up like carrying the weight of all the success you've had before. And I realize it sounds like I'm bitching about privilege, but I'm not, because what I'm saying is, you know, this Kickstarter I'm doing right now, for example, I'm doing the Kickstarter for Tales of Mystery Volume 5, an omnibus, total 700 pages of content. Okay. The long 32 issues worth of content, if you look at it in standard comic book issue format. A success now is different, or than what a success looked like when I was getting started.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's just, you're right, it takes a lot of work to keep going, and it takes a lot of work to keep grinding and hustling and keep producing. There's days, well, I can't say that honestly. I was going to say there's days where I just wanted to be done, just quit. That's not true. I've never wanted to quit. But I think there's days where I could say to myself, you know, I got a hell of a lot of comics. I've worked with a lot of people. I've made a lot of work. I'm going to go play video games the rest of my life. I'm done. I'm out. I'm just not wired that way. I love what I do, and I love doing this. But, you know, you're right, man. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to enjoy sometimes even a little success.
So let's talk about the elephant you're not mentioning in the room, and it's a certain E word, expectations. Yours. Right. I often say that success is a bigger fear than failure, because here's the thing. Well, everybody fails. We all slip on our ass. We all do it. Like, and I will do it happily for the rest of my life, whether in public or in private. It's my life. Whatever. I screw up. It's life, right? That's just the way it is. I own my mistakes.
Fall down 7 times, stand up 8.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. That's all there is to it. However, again, I have an award. You're you got on the Kickstarter train well before almost everybody else did. Like you were one of the pioneers. So you have one of the advantages is you got a lot more momentum than some of the people starting now, sure. Right? But that also means this: how many campaigns have you done?
Oh man, I'd have to look. Well, here I want to say my created number is actually not. I've actually done more. It says I've created 7, but I think I've run closer to 10.
Okay, so you've done 10 campaigns.
Yeah,
and before that, let's talk about this. Before that, you were published with other publishers in smaller venues,
and Image Comics too.
Image Comics and lots of places. You've built. Like, it took you a long time, but you built a name. You got content out there. You kept doing all kinds of things. So by the time you got to Kickstarter, you had expectations not just from yourself, but from your audience. You have something and this is where a lot of creatives envy you. You've built your audience. But what a lot of people don't realize about this is, that's right, you've built your audience. So now for you, this is like one of those branding nightmares. There's a certain expectation with what Dirk Manning delivers now each and every time he goes out there. Right. So one of the challenges you have is, this is why Butts and Seats is great for you, because it opens up other doors you never would have actually gone down, is you had like your little niche and corner of the comic book universe. So now you have the idea, now you can expand into other territories.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
No, it does. It does. And the thing is, what's interesting is there's no one that can tell you, even as surprising as it was when you were doing a comic with an AEW wrestling personality, it's not really off brand.
Mm-mm.
When you look at me doing stuff like the Harp Twins and then doing stuff with Twisted and then moving to here, all that stuff still fits in the vein of what I do. And but you're right, and I want to double back on something you said a minute ago. Success is a lot scarier to a lot of people than failure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've I've talked to some peers of mine about this who are working with peers who I've said point out this is a person that's afraid to succeed. You know, because the idea that you could succeed and then don't is worse than not trying and not succeeding. You know, if I'm going to put it all out there, that's one of the things about crowdfunding and Kickstarter that is so frightening to people. And we had this talk with Schiavone. I had this talk with Twisted. I had this talk with the Harp Twins. I've had this talk with my creative teams I work with on creator-owned books. I've had this talk with publishers. You are literally throwing yourselves out there and saying, here's this product. Here's the best I can offer you. Go.
Yeah.
What we can do. You know, my very first Kickstarter that I ran, that in fact I even ran through my account, I ran through Devil's Due, was for Tales of Mystery Volume 1. I got over the finish line because I had some angels. I had some patrons who said, we are going to really invest in this because we believe in you. And we believe that if we get you started, you're going to do really good things. And I am forever indebted to those people. Now I'm sitting here and I'm over 400,000 on Kickstarter. I'm closing in. I think within my next couple of campaigns, I'll be at the 500,000 club. Now there's people that do it better. There's people like Brian Polito, for example, and other people that just blow my numbers out of the water. But like you said, I take a certain amount of pride in being one of the trailblazers in this. But again, it comes back to you got to work hard and you got to be willing to, you got to be brave and you got to be willing to put it out there and you got to be willing to fail and you got to be willing to fail publicly. Creating art and putting it in the world is scary. And there's a lot of people that say they want to do this stuff until they get the chance. And then suddenly they start pulling back. Suddenly they're pulling back on the reins.
So
it's scary.
Do you mind me to answer Jag's point? Because I think I'm going to add to what you're saying. So Jag says there's a weird psychology. If a person starts poor, they might be being given too much money. It's not. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree with your conclusion. But the fear is real, and I'll tell you why the fear is real. Both me and Dirk can say this. I never imagined I'd be doing 675 episodes of a podcast. That never crossed my mind. Yeah, I know. Scary, huh? But I'm a month, and by the end of the month, I might be at 700. Isn't that like a wild? That's a wild thing, right?
That's so cool,
right? You never imagined that when you started Nightmare World, these 8-page stories that you'd end up doing Tony Schiavone,
right?
No, right. You never imagined that.
It was never on my radar.
No. So I have 8 rules to success. So first rule I know you'll love: show up. So it's like right. So it's the dumbest rule, but it's the one everybody breaks.
Amen.
Right. But here's the thing. Like I said, don't fall in love with outcomes. Here's the thing about success: it never looks the same for anybody else.
Right.
It honestly doesn't. Like if I were to talk about I think it's dumb because it's so obvious, Jag. That's the thing, is it seems like it's like an obvious rule to me. As I get older, I realize how rare it really is. But that's another, that we will go there in a minute. But Dirk, your what success looks like for you, even what you envision how it started, I imagine it has changed quite a bit. Because although maybe the goal has always been where you're at, you never could have imagined this. But I'm willing to make a bet with you that looking back, you couldn't imagine it going any other way.
You might lose that bet.
I might lose that one. I might. Hey, I might.
You have it at the end there. I definitely had a different idea of how this was going to go when I got started.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I I won't. I won't get into all the ways which I thought it would go differently. But years ago, and you'll remember this from Right or Wrong back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I one of the things that most blows me away is that how long it's taken people to comic book stores, especially, to gravitate more towards graphic novels than single issues.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at how I started doing Nightmare World, I did do a fleeting thing with a publisher where we were going to release it as issues.
Mm-hmm.
But by and large, most of my career, almost everything I've done has been direct to graphic novel. Because to me, I've always approached making comics like a more of a traditional prose author. Here's the book. If every year I can put out a book, whether it be a Nightmare World book or a Tales of Mystery book or this other one-off book, and then come back to this, and I would have bet and lost that people would be catching on to that much sooner. One of the things I was shocked by is how comic book stores for a long time shied away from that. And I understand the economy of it now more than I did when I was a younger creator, and how the monthly issues sustain things, and getting people to invest $15 in a writer they've never heard of or a book they've never heard of, as opposed to investing $3 in a 22-page thing where they know it. But that being said, pound for pound, I mean, there's always going to be some regret you have about things, but I'm happy where I am. That I can give you. I'm very
Yeah. Well, so being talked about, like, I think the biggest thing about the comic shop is the Wednesday experience.
Right.
Right. That was the one thing. That was the one thing you could not offer. But the other aspect you had to deal with also was the fact that for a while, for the majority of your comic career, one distributor pretty much dictated the whole market.
Right.
That's not the case anymore.
No.
And it's changed. It's kind of changed everything, actually. I think I'm going to be very. I almost feel. I hope you get. I'm no. I hope I don't want to sound like insulting saying this. I hope you get more. I think comics are going to go more towards names on top, like in traditional publishing.
Right.
And property secondary. Not always. Yeah. I always think like Superman, Spider-Man, there's always going to be like a name, but I do think the era is coming where names of creatives, writers, and artist teams are going to be highlighted a lot more, because it makes a lot more sense to do that than relaunch every 6 months. That's just my opinion. But hey, what do I know? I
don't think you're wrong. That's something else I would have predicted a lot sooner. Yes. But again, Marvel and DC have a vested interest, and they learned this real quick. I would even argue, like when Axel Alonso got really involved in Marvel, he was really putting over creators on the titles.
Yes, he was.
Because a lot of the Marvel franchises weren't doing that hot. So we got J. Michael Straczynski on Spider-Man, and we got Bruce Jones on the Hulk, and we got Grant Morrison on the X-Men. But then I think kind of they took back the reins and said, hold on. X-Men needs to be the star. Spider-Man needs to be the star. The Hulk needs to be the star, But that was that Vertigo-driven approach, that Axel brought from DC Vertigo over to Marvel, and the corporations realized, oh my God, once we can make $1 million off of Iron Man in the movies and more, multi-millions, we can launch $1 billion franchise off of Iron Man.
Yeah,
a D-list character at the time.
Yes.
We need to keep the property up top. But what's happening now is we're seeing this new economy come into place where readers are starting to recognize, who made that Iron Man story so cool?
Yeah.
Who made it? What else have they done? Oh, they do their own thing? I might want to check that out, and it's, so you're right. It's interesting. And that's something else I banked on for a long time. When you look at a lot of the early Right or Wrong stuff I talked about, was that model. It's like, what else has Garth Ennis done? What else has, insert creator here, Dave Lampum, Alan Moore, Brian Azzarello, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. What else have these creators done? Eric Powell,
Terry Moore is one of my personal favorites, but that's neither here nor there, right? No. But I mean, that's we're going, like, it's comics. I think because of the nature of also Kickstarter. Like, I don't know about you, but this is the other thing too about it. I don't go to the comic shop to get as many books as I used to, because the best books actually aren't in comic shops by and large right now. Right? There are some good ones. I'm not saying there's not.
Yeah,
But
I still try to go every week, but
yeah. But but again, it's access, right?
mm-hmm.
I can go read Rob Multerry's Snowpaw or his Nightwolf series. I can go read Kaylin Smith. I love her stuff. She does some amazing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Some guy named Dirk. What's his name? He does this butts and something. I don't know. He does. Yeah. No, not important, right? But the thing is, I can find great creators that make amazing books. I probably get more bang for my buck on average,
right,
than I would. Now, again, there are exceptions to this. I'm not going to say there aren't good books in comic shops. There are, but I don't have to go by the traditional model anymore.
Right, and that's the thing. Whether it be online comics having this massive resurgence, which, say what you will, things like webtoons. The fact of the matter is that online comics are getting a big bump again. Kickstarter is creating a huge democracy for comics. There's more access than ever. You don't need to go through Diamond. You don't even need to go through a publisher.
Exactly.
When I did Buried But Not Dead, in 2020, the Source Point wasn't attached to publish that book originally. That was a book I was putting out, a bunch of my lost tales and things like that. Source Point ended up picking it up, but it was, again, kind of like that, showing, hey, I can cover my print costs and things like that and print this book and deliver it and get it out there myself through Kickstarter because I have a crowd. In order to crowdfund, you have to have a crowd. And if you're willing to do the work and be there and work hard and be nice and, no making excuses or give grace, depending on how you want to look at it, you can get to the point where you can be willing to lay it on the line and be transparent and just say, here's my book. Here's what I need to help kickstart it to make it happen. Let's go. And you're right. It allows a diversity of ideas, a diversity of creators. And I realized I was listing a lot of my favorite creators. It's like, wow, there's a bunch of white guys, but it just allows more unique voices and things like that, and more unique ideas and more unique talents. And it's awesome. It's really cool.
I would I don't know if he'll ever do it. I would love to see Jimmy Robinson do some stuff on Kickstarter. I think he's somebody that would do incredibly well in that environment if he promoted, because he's a talent that I feel like got underserved in mainstream publishing that would do very, very well. My opinion. I could be totally wrong, but
no, you're exactly. Well, that's the thing. You gotta be willing to go there. You gotta be willing to try. But it's different strokes for different folks. There's some people that will never need to touch Kickstarter. When I was at Image, Jim Valentino did so much to help my career. So much. When I wanted to do something with Kickstarter, he wasn't into it. So it's one of the reasons I ended up leaving Image, and I wasn't mad or anything like that, but I'm like, I think that this is going to work for me. This is going to work for what I do, and that's exactly it, is that there's some people who don't need to go the crowdfunding route, don't want to. We talked about this a little bit ago. It's so much work. The only thing that's more work than running a campaign that hasn't been funded yet is running a campaign that has been funded.
Yes.
It's an extraordinary amount of work either way. Even now, talking to you just now, I'm running my Kickstarter for Tales of Mystery, which people can go to Kickstarter and type in RHEE, R-H-E-E, find the volume 5 in the omnibus, or talesofmystery.com. I literally was just checking the campaign, talking to you. Checking it, because I'm already thinking, okay, I got to post an update tonight. Where are we at? Oh my gosh, we're $107 away from the ultimate stretch goal. What am I going to do? Blah, 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 blah. It's work. And it's not that I'm not totally engaged in what you're doing too, but part of me hates running a Kickstarter, because normally I like to share funny memes, like to share stories, like to jump online and talk to people. When I'm running a Kickstarter, this is like all enveloping in my life.
No, I get it.
If I may, and it's not because I want to sell the book, it's because I'm excited about the book. I'm excited to pay it forward to people and give people all this stuff. It's like, this is my world for this 30 days.
All right. So let me tell you what's also going on with you, because you're not just Dirk Manning. see, this is where I say like it never works out like you imagine. When we started, like when we had dreams of doing comics or whatever and other stuff, I dreamed of being a tour superstar, like Robert Jordan, Terry Goodkind. Like I'm a big literary, like, right?
Yeah.
You dream to have like your own, like again, you got it to some degree when you got into Image Shadow line, but the idea is like one of the bigger publishers would publish a line of your books.
Right.
What ended up happening though, and this is what's happened to both of us, is we're no longer just writers or we are businessmen, entrepreneurs.
Oh yeah.
That's who we are. You, again, it makes sense that you're running the campaign. Like right now, I have a book coming out in December. So I'm as excited about that as I am doing this.
You're probably prepping to launch that book now.
Yeah. I already have, like, and I already have, right? So I've been doing it. And again, and I'm putting my big chances there because I have no idea what the book's going to be do or like. And it's a weird little niche that I don't know if anyone's going to care about. I don't care because it's who I am, and I have to be true to me.
And that's the name of the game, brother.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing. Like, you're a businessman. So, as a businessman, you're going to be on top of it. You're the manager. Guess what? You're going to be dealing with every supplier and like, what do you mean the print run isn't going to be out until this time? Right? Okay, that sucks.
What do you mean there's a shortage of containers, and as a result, everything is backlogged in the LA port? And the book.
Oh yeah, exactly. You got there are so many things, like you are juggling balls nonstop. Like that's just what you're doing. So, but also there's again, also Dirk the businessman, Dirk going to a publisher. You have this luxury now. The publisher goes, "Hey, we'd like to publish your book." Okay. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
And you have that unique position of it because you have a crowd, you have an audience. So what you're looking for is to expand that audience.
Absolutely. And I've said this since day one, even the early Right or Wrong days. Ask not what you can do for a publisher, ask what a publisher can do for you. Going back to Buried But Not Dead. When I went to SourcePoint about publishing the book, it was kind of like, hey, look, you guys see what I just did with this book in 15 days. I had almost 15 grand in 15 days. Now, it's not 15 grand profit, that was covering print costs, things like that. But we were able to have this conversation about, now imagine if this book goes out through Simon & Schuster. It'd be cool to have. And I pitched them the book, and I said, this self-contained book, 9 different stories. Riley Rossmo friggin' did a story in here. Mariana Pascosta, Ringo Award nominated artist, Austin McKinley's going to be doing Revolume 5, blah, 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 and you're right. We were able to have that conversation where not only is what can you do for me, how can we negotiate a win-win here?
Yes.
And that's what business is about. And again, I was getting teary-eyed a moment ago. My grandfather dropped out of school when he was I want to say 16. Maybe even sooner than that. I think, but it was like 16. Yeah, it was 16 latest. He dropped out of school. He worked every day of his life ever since as his own businessman. He started his own business. He dropped out of school when he was 16, and he created a teen bar. Not like a bar, but like a teen club.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's what he did. So he dropped out of school and created a teen club where his friends would then come and hang out. And he worked every day of his life ever since till he got sick. But you're right. It's all business, and being a writer of creator-owned content means you don't have the luxury of just writing. You have to manage your brand. You have to manage your work. You have to manage your social media. You have to manage your teams. You have to manage your contract negotiations. So then you have to bring in lawyers, and you got to negotiate this stuff. And when you have a falling out with an artist you work with, or someone's missing a deadline, or whatever the case may be, or someone tweeted that you spit on the sidewalk, whatever it's going to be, you have to manage all that stuff as well, and make business decisions. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It'd be easier to be this guy that begs to write Spider-Man or begs to write Batman and just write scripts and turn them in. Okay, and then I know a lot of people that chase that dream too, but I'm a businessman.
Actually, okay, so that's also an interesting one. Because at this point, I get this hunch. I mean, in one sense, you kind of are, because you are doing. I would imagine. I don't know if you're ever going to say anything on air one way or the other. I'm almost certain down the road you're going to do more things with AEW. I could see it. I mean, just something tells me. That all said, right? I don't know if they came up to you tomorrow and said, "Hey, you want to do Justice League?" That you would necessarily say yes, because again, this is strictly on a business level, right? Yeah, you'd love like there's a party. It's like, yeah, we all got that Justice League story or that Avengers story or that X-Men story,
right, whatever.
But does it serve you to do it?
Go ahead.
And that's why I was just going to finish with that's an interesting question. It's something I realized, like, with me and my writing career, that do I go becoming, like, Tora offered me something today, would I take it?
Right. One of the most profound conversations I ever had was I'm pulling this book off my shelf for a very specific reason. So again, sorry to turn my back on you for a second.
No worries.
Was with Eric Powell. And we talked a minute ago about how Eric Powell, one of my favorite creators as well, personally and professionally. I have a lot of love for Eric Powell. His self-publishing roots, he went to Dark Horse, he went back to self-publishing, and amazing guy, very cool guy. I've had the privilege of getting to have dinner with him, sometimes. And one time in particular, I talked to him. And I had this big talk with him right when I was going over with Devil's Due, when I left Image and things like that. And I was kind of at that point in my career where I could start having conversations with like the Marvels and the DCs about maybe trying to start to get in some D-level character. And I was talking about that because at the time he had just finished doing a run on Superman. Okay. And, did work with one of the top writers at DC, did a Superman Bizarro story, which of course is right up Eric Powell's alley. And Eric Powell's, I mean, God, he's phenomenal artist. And this Bizarro story arc that he did, and every Eric Powell thing it's Eric Powell drawing freaking Bizarro. All right. It's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And, I was talking to him about this, and I said, Eric, not that I'm on your level yet. I'm not. I said, but here's a situation where, you just worked on Superman. And I said, and I'm to a point too where I'm starting to think about, I was having some conversations with some editors and about maybe this is something I need to do to grow my brand, because I felt I was getting to a point with Nightmare World and Tales of Mystery and Love Stories to Die For and stuff like that, that I literally said, I felt like a fish in a tank, and I had gotten as big as the tank was. I needed to get into a bigger tank. I needed to grow my brand out. And he said something profound. And what he said was, he goes, I did that Superman story. And he talked about what he discovered was, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn when I say this, but he said, people that read my Superman story had virtually no interest in reading the Goon. I'm thinking to myself, well, wow, but the art's phenomenal, stuff like that. But he extrapolated, he goes, people that read Superman do not want to read and I'm kind of putting words in his mouth a little bit here, but the punchline is the theme of what he was saying. The biographical fiction here, I think, is what the term one of my friends, Leah Letterman, just explained to me the other day, is people that read Superman don't want to read a story about a buck-toothed thug that fights zombies. The audiences don't match. So he said, if you're going to go that route, he said, you need to work on a property that people will go from that property they know, that if they want to follow you, going back to our conversation earlier, Josh, about following the name, what else has this guy done? Eric said people that read his stuff on Superman like his art go, oh, what else has this guy done? Oh, this thing, the Goon? Now, despite all the Eisner, Eisners and all that stuff, Superman people, Goon people, the Venn diagram's not as big. Now, if he would have done the Demon, or if he would have done Deadman,
Swamp Thing,
yeah, right.
Swamp Thing,
There's more of a correlation there. And that was very profound for me. And I've always owed him a debt of gratitude for that, because it really helped me to stop and consider, okay, so if I'm going to try to go write for Marvel or DC, and they're going to put me on, I don't know, insert D-list character here, how is that going to translate to Nightmare World sales? How is it going to translate to Tales of Mystery? How is it going to translate to Love Stories to Die For? How is it going to translate to Right or Wrong? You know, the big properties I had at the time. So instead, when opportunities came up for me to work with, for example, the rap rock band out of Detroit, Twisted, that tracked, right?
Mhm.
That worked. Not only did it play to my strengths of years as a music journalist, but also I got to do like this adult Scooby-Doo thing. The crossover was there. You know, even working with the Harp Twins, getting to do the one-shot comic with them, this kind of Nordic fantasy thing, you know, and getting to work with Kaylin Smith, that worked because we were working on Hope together. That tracked. You know, even branching out and then doing Hope, it was part of the branding there was Kaylin Smith and I launching that book together, two online comic juggernauts. And it was two great tastes to taste great together type thing, you know, not to be crass, but you know, it was like peanut butter and chocolate. You know, it's like, here's these two it's Macho Man and Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
Here's these two powerhouse people, and they're coming together and doing this thing that is unlike this thing either one of them has done before. That way, when I had the book with the female superhero on the cover and it was pink, people said, okay, Dirk, you got a lot of work out and we like it. We're willing to give this a shot. Same with Haunted Hands with Twisted. Volume 2 comes out in comic book stores next month. And, you know, the last volume was nominated for 3 different Ringo Awards. People that don't necessarily like Twisted, you know, they still associate them with ICP, or, you know, they don't like juggalos, or whatever their reason is. A lot of people said, you know, we trust you, Dirk. We like your stuff. We're going to give this a shot. And then saw, wow, I really like this book. But again, it's on brand. It's like an adult Scooby-Doo. It's a supernatural comedy. So point being, you know, we're Marvel or DC to knock on my door and say, hey, we see all the stuff you're doing and we want to bring you in. And my question would become, how can this serve my brand? Because ultimately, your only fate working for Marvel or DC or any company like that is to eventually get fired or not get hired anymore. How long did Chuck Dixon write Batman?
Oh, Jesus.
Right? He doesn't anymore. you know, I mean, or Stan Lee, even, you know, whatever the case may be. Eventually, and especially now more than ever, they want their best stories out of you so they can potentially monetize them in other media. And then they move on to the next guy or the next girl, the next creator, the next person, the next team. We live in a different economy now of storytelling, and a different creative economy. I would have to look at a deal like that going in saying, okay, I'm going to give you my best Ghost Rider story, which is on brand for me to write Ghost Rider, just for example.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but then no, I'm going to have a very limited window to do some really cool Ghost Rider stuff. I just saw a news article the other day, which, God, I can't remember I think it was Swamp Thing, that it was a big deal that they're bringing back the Swamp Thing team for another season. And I'm like, well, there's my Alan Moore on a Swamp Thing right there on my bookshelf. And that was a hell of a run. And now we're celebrating, we're getting another 10 issues from the same team. That's news. I'm old school. I want the character. I want the creative team to do a big arc, to do a big run. But it would have to serve my work. It would have to serve what I do. I'm not saying no. I'll always, like with Schiavone, I'd be willing to have that conversation.
Well, so here's a wrestler you probably will really dig, and then we'll wrap up by talking about mystery. Al Snow, right? So one of my favorite things, he actually does a wrestling teaching thing, and what he said, and I think one of the wisest things he says is, no matter where you end up going, you have a shelf life.
Yep.
And your job in that shelf life is to maximize your opportunities in the space you're in. Doesn't matter what it is.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right. So and he goes, what television is, and this is from wrestling point of view, television is a commercial. Every character you see on television has a limited stuff. Like, some, it's much longer than others. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, time is undefeated. It's true also in a writing career. looking at me, like I said, there are traditional publishers I'd love to work with, but I also know this too. For me personally, it's a shelf life, maybe 1, 2, 3 books. That's it. For me to do a career in this, and this is the reality I think every creative must face, you're doing stuff on your own. It is the only way to keep going long after. So you have to have a plan for when you go, and you also have a plan when it's over. Because it will come to an end.
And a plan when you're there.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
Right. Once you get in, how long can you stay there? And how much can you do when you're there? Right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you want to stay there too, because that's all. Every creative has different goals too. Like maybe you only want to do 1 year of ghostwriter. Maybe you want to do 5 years of ghostwriter, right? But different reasons for different goals. Maybe you just want to go in and tell your story and leave. Maybe you fall in love with the character and want to do more. Everybody has slightly different goals there, but I can't speak for that. Everybody, right? All I can speak of, you're going to go in, you're going to do your thing, and you're going to leave at some point.
Right. And I'll tell you a funny story too before we transition over to Mr. Reed. So Al Snow, as we know, has some comics out now. Years ago, I was pitched to write for the Al Snow comic. And ultimately I turned it down. Not that I didn't like the people involved, not that I didn't like Al Snow, but to me, I just, at the time, I didn't have the capacity, nor did I feel that I could bring what that project needed to help support what I was doing. Which is ironic now that I'm doing the book with Tony Schiavone, and again, the book became a #1 bestseller on Amazon and everything else. And yes, I am tooting that horn because
you should. Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, I get there's 1,000 or whatever it is different categories in Amazon that you can be #1 in, but I was #1 in one of them, and I'll take it. I'll take it all day, and I'm going to say it for as long as I can say it. But it's just funny that you mentioned Al Snow. I was like, yeah, I was actually pitched to work on his first comic. And I like the guys involved and stuff like that. And I liked Al, but it just it wasn't the right time. And it's ironic then that now later with the Schiavone thing. So fun exclusive for you since we go back so long. There you go.
Yeah. No, I just bring this up because I figured we went very business-like. It's very funny how we went on this one. Next time you do come on the show before we wrap up, I would love to actually talk to you a little bit about, because I get the feeling you and me have the same our copacetic about wrestling right now. AEW is probably like the best product by a shot right now.
Yeah, it's hands down the best wrestling show out there.
Yeah.
No offense to Impact. No offense to Impact Wrestling.
Impact
is also very good, and pretty much those are your two wrestling programs. Yeah. No offense to WWE, but there's just different. There's different paths. There's different roads.
There's different flavors of. There's different flavors of ice cream. Right. Yeah. So
we can all have our favorites, and we can all enjoy all of them.
Exactly. So, but you are doing Mystery right now.
Yes.
So
I've been hitting refresh talking to you because I'm watching the number go up. We're about to unlock the ultimate stretch goal.
That's really cool. Like, but before we, so how long is your campaign going until at this point?
We got 10 more days. It goes till November 19th. We are, as we talk right now, we're sitting at $23,559. We're $107 away from the ultimate stretch goal of a free video game download with every hardcover. This will make Tales of Mystery the first comic book Kickstarter to offer people a free video game, which again is a weird flex, but I'm going to take it.
I don't really think it's that weird. Here's an exclusive for me. So I'm doing an Alice in Wonderland Greek mythology mashup. Alice is Pandora. She opens the box and a certain Cheshire friend is actually in her head. That's the book that's coming out in December.
Okay.
It's really fun. It's really fun.
Great, pre-sold one. I'll tell you right now.
I'll send you the links when we're done.
Okay.
Here's the thing, right? So I accidentally invented a board game with it. What I would love to do with it, and this is what I'm going to let you in on a little secret. My Kickstarter debut is either going to be a physical board game, or if I can find somebody, a video game of the board game. Because it's basically a very crazy Snakes and Ladders variant that's super, super fun. I've played tested it a few times. It's really, 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 really fun. So
I know a video game designer.
We'll have to talk. When you're not quite so busy, we will have to actually have a talk about that. But what I will say is I don't really think it's a stretch, because I mean, again, we're going to go back to Dirk Manning, the businessman, for just a second here, right? Comics are probably, in my opinion, and by the way, I'm just going to do this real quick so people can actually see it. Ta-da! Kickstarter right there.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So what I am going to say is, video games is probably the last great frontier of storytelling. And for a guy that does comic books, video games have interaction, which is something that a comic, no matter how good it is, can't quite create that experience. But a game can. And someone like you might enjoy the challenge of that.
Yes. I will say the game that we're offering is more of like a fight. It's called Tales of Mystery Punch All Monsters. It's more of a simple like Steam type download game, but it's cool. It's definitely a throwback to like the old punch 'em out type games. Yeah, I've been amazed. A couple of years ago, I took Christmas break off and played the new God of War game, and wow. Man, it's like watching a movie, and I sound like such a Luddite, and I know I sound like such a Luddite saying this stuff. I get it. But wow, man, it just blows me away. You're watching movies, and I've actually done research and stuff like that in the storytelling of how these games are designed to get you to keep playing them.
Agreed.
Yeah, God of War is epic. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I mean, that new one, I played one or two before that back in the day, but yeah, that new God of War was like, oh my god. But even like studying the storytelling techniques, and then like with the new God of War specifically, again, I'm such a geek on this stuff, how the game had no cutscenes, and how they would integrate like, oh, when he's like crawling through a tunnel, like that was like the load screen, and these things they did, it was fascinating to me. I don't get a lot of time to play video games, honestly. I just don't. But it could be cool. I mean, I got to kind of write the plot of this one, which is mysteries fighting all these monsters. Go, and if you punch out this many monsters, this certain thing will happen, and then you win the game. But
I'm going to give you a recommendation just because I somehow feel it would be blown away by just how it's put together. I'm a big Persona. I'm a Persona gamer. I'm a big fan of the Persona games.
Okay.
Check out Persona 5. I think
that. Yeah, a lot of people
you have heard of it.
Really
watch.
Yeah.
I will tell you this: the first 20 minutes of that game will blow your mind. The intro is in.
Right, and the fact that you're telling me the intro is 20 minutes, that blows my mind.
Yeah.
Right. That blows my mind.
You still no, but it's you'll be hooked immediately. It's a thief game. It's a thief game that will just you'll be in it. The story will grab you literally by the throat and will not let go. And you'll be like,
and that's the thing though, Josh, I don't want that to happen because I have stuff to do. Like I schedule like once in a while, once every couple of years, I schedule like a week where I'm just going to play a game. And I did that last a couple of years ago, and I had a lot of fun. I played God of War. I know there's new God of War coming out. Maybe in a couple of years I'll do it again.
Yeah.
Check out Persona 5 will be on the list. But yeah, exactly. Once you get sucked in these video games, you're doomed.
True. It's so
yeah,
true.
and it's like my vacation, and it's fun. And I watch wrestling. I'll watch a movie sometimes here and there. But right, that's a whole different level of commitment. And
no, I respect that. No, I honestly do respect that. I'm the same way. It's her job, so which is a really cool job. Yeah, right. It's a great job, right? But the thing about it is, and then we'll wrap up and we'll tie everything all together in a nicely little bow here. Is I just think that for a comic book guy, I would look at video games. It's like one of those like great frontiers because you're playing with different experiences, that you couldn't do with a traditional story. So again, who knows? Down the road, maybe you'll get that chance. But
we'll see. Right now, I'm focused on unlocking this free video game on Tales of Mystery.
Which is a great thing. But before we wrap up, do you think the next time you do come in, it'll be a little less than 600 episodes?
I think I don't like to use the word owe, but I do think I owe you that.
Yeah.
It's been nice, man. It's been good catching up. I appreciate this. This has been really fun. And And I want to congratulate you too personally and sincerely for the amount of success you're having. And a lot of the success is due just to dogged determination and hard work. And I commend you on that, man. You've always been a very driven person, and I'm just really proud. And I don't mean that in any condescending way. I mean that peer to peer. I'm very proud of all you've accomplished. So congratulations. Truly. Thank you.
Maybe the next time we do this, I'll have like this like crazy ass set, and I'll have to actually invite you to come here somehow, some way, and just do it that way. That'd be kind of cool.
Oh my gosh, right. That'll be 500 episodes, not 600, right?
Yeah. Fair enough.
Like we have only 590. Like Dirk, you have 10 episodes left. Yeah. Keep going, man. I got this kid really going. And we can work on it. We can talk about that.
All right. But yeah, next time it'll be a good time. So before we wrap up.
Yes, sir.
We mentioned we mentioned AEW, mentioned Hunted Highons, I believe. Did we miss anything before we wrap up?
I mean, I'll mention this just because I know it's a special interest to you. We're going to be putting out a second edition of Right or Wrong. So Right or Wrong second edition. That's going to lead then into Right or Wrong Volume 2. It is an active production. I've had a lot happen that keeps making me push back Right or Wrong 2 because, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this, good and bad, all these things happening. So I've decided to draw a hard line, a hard stop. January 1st, 2022, boom. That is my cut line for Right or Wrong 2. And I'm going to talk about everything up to that point, done. And then if we do a volume 3, it'll be after that. So got that coming out. Those will be coming out from SourcePoint Press, or the re-release of Right or Wrong Volume 1, second edition, then Right or Wrong Volume 2. But the big thing right now, honestly, is we've got 10 days left on Tales of Mystery. And if I can just put a quick plug in for what this book's about. Tales of Mystery is Cthulhu Noir. It's about a paranormal troubleshooter who knows that there's monsters and demons out there. And even though society has experienced them firsthand, they want to believe they're gone. Mystery knows they're not. We're offering 2 books on this campaign. We're offering Tales of Mystery Volume 5, which is beginning of Act 2. Perfect jumping on point for the series. So if you're watching this, you can go to talesofmystery.com. It'll take you to the Kickstarter. Go to Kickstarter and just type in RHEE, R-H-E-E. Like I said, we're about $107 away from our 11th stretch goal, which is a free video game. Yeah, that's it right there, right on. Yeah. Volume 5 is a perfect jumping on point. It's about 150-page graphic novel. Free U.S. shipping and everything. Sorry to my friends in Canada. We're offering the most fair shipping prices we can. What we're also offering with this campaign, though, is the Tales of Mystery Omnibus Act 1, which collects the first 4 volumes being re-released by SourcePoint Press in a Kickstarter exclusive hardcover with a cover by James O'Barr, creator of The Crow. Also in the Omnibus, Volume 1 of Tales of Mystery is in full color for the first and only time. So the whole book will be consistent. The whole book will match. 550-page graphic novel, Kickstarter exclusive hardcover. Volume 5, yeah, right. If you go look at the link, The Crow is one of the books that got me into comics. Stretch goal wise, talking about The Crow. Yesterday we unlocked a signed print of the cover by James O'Barr, signed by James O'Barr. It comes with all your hardcover pledges for free. Of Kickstarter exclusive bonus comic with 2 other stories. A signed book plate with a head sketch remark. We're about to unlock a free video game. If you go to talesmystery.com, go to Kickstarter, type in RHEE, R-H-E-E. You can see all the stretch goals we're offering here. This is my pay it forward, everyone. I'm really big on the fact that I really appreciate all the support people show. You can get the Kickstarter exclusive hardcovers of the book. You can get the signed print by James O'Barr. Comes with it for free. The video game is going to come with it for free if we unlock that. The book plate's going to come with it for free. The bonus comic for free. The sticker for free. All that other stuff we unlock is for free with the campaign, and it's all Kickstarter exclusive. So if you check that stuff out, I would appreciate it. You want to support independent creators. You're looking for a new cool horror comic to read, whether you jump into Volume 5, jump with the Omnibus, pledge to level comfort. And if you know other people that like horror, like Cthulhu Noir, take a minute and share the link. It's appreciated.
One last thing. How can people find you if they want to just talk to you?
DirkManning.com is my website, has my touring schedule on there. I know we're wrapping up 2021, but I'm already booking several conventions for 2022. Facebook, Instagram, God help me, even Twitter, at Dirk Manning. Look for the guy with the top hat and the scarf. That's my avatar.
That's right.
Find me on social media that way, just at Dirk Manning. DirkManning.com is my website. You can sign up for my monthly newsletter at DirkManning.com. I'm not hard to find if people want to talk, stay in touch. I like to support other creators. I like to talk about what I do. I talked earlier. I like to talk about horror and comics and wrestling and ice cream and just chat. So yeah, I'm around if people want to kind of stay in touch, follow along with what we're doing, this journey we're all in together. I always appreciate the opportunity. Just like I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, man. Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on. And
Yeah,
that, ladies and gentlemen, was Dirk Manning. And before I wrap up, I just want to say thanks to Dirk and everybody else that comes on, watching, listening, however you're doing it. Check out Alice 1. It comes out December 1st. The link will be if you're listening to the show, in the description below. Beyond all that, guys, if you want to support this channel, follow me on Just Joshing Podcast on Twitch. My YouTube channel is Joshua Pintoresco. Hit like, subscribe, enable notifications there. Stay inspired, keep shining in the dark, and I will be back, I believe, Wednesday with another guest. All right, guys, take care.
thank you.